What's up, everyone? Welcome to CannaBuzz. We are live right now in the CannaBuzz community. And if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. We've got a great interview for you today with Patrick, the Soil King, maker of big roots and baby roots and all sorts of great things, dropper of knowledge on Instagram. We're really stoked to connect with Patrick today and talk all about his journey and his soil and everything like that. But before we get too into it, I need to get a couple shout outs there first before we get into it. So first, shout out to our community. We're live right now, like I just said, in the CannaBuzz community. So we've got people in the chat, like 420 Gramps, who's out here in Vallejo. So shout out, man. What's up, dude? NorCal representing. And then we've got a bunch of others. We do live giveaways every week in our live chat. So look up the CannaBuzz app in the App Store and use the code GROWERSLOVE for 50% off to help support the show and help us ship out seeds to our followers and all good stuff like that. Also, shout out to Grove Bags, Terploc, makers of Grove Bags. They hooked us up with a code where you can get 7% off your next order. Use the code CannaBuzz. It's a bag to cure your weed. So basically you dry it in a tent, like your 3x3 or 4x4 or whatever, and then you throw it in a bag, and it cures your weed to not to perfection, but to pretty damn good. JR said it did him quite well. So check out Grove Bags over at grovebags.com and use the code CannaBuzz. And then lastly, shout out to TikiMadMan, who is supporting the show for a long time now. Thanks, Tiki. He's over at TikiMadMan.com, and Tiki Seeds is his website. That's tikiseeds.com. Is that right, JR? Just want to make sure I don't mess up that URL. Yeah, Tiki Seeds. And so let's see. This week, what has he got? It's the LCG times Zerber. Is that what it is?
Yeah, so that's a lemon cherry gelato by Zerbert, which is, I believe, obviously, I think it's a Zookie's sherbet cross. But that's a new one that he's got out. And if you hit his Instagram, he's dropping some more stuff this week as well.
Awesome.
So keep an eye out for what Tiki has to offer.
So yeah, thank you to Tiki. He helped us get to Emerald Cup last year. We're super appreciative to him. But all right, let's get into it. Our guest today is Patrick. He's the Soil King. He's been going all across the U.S. over the last several years, getting the soil to the people so that they can grow great weed and grow great other plants as well. It's all good. And we're super excited to connect with Patrick. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Man, it's exciting. Yeah, always. It's about fucking time, isn't it? I mean, come on.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I mean? Shit. Same team.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Patrick. We really appreciate it. I know you are an extremely, extremely busy man, especially this time of the year. And usually we kind of start our guests off with a little backstory to how they fell in love with the plant, but your story is very interesting, and you have a lot of history in the cannabis community, especially from my perspective as a young weed nerd. So we really want to talk about your story quite a bit today, and we really do appreciate you offering to be a repeat offender and come back on and drop some knowledge for us, because you have a lot to share. So first of all, we always start off with how did you fall in love with the plant, and what started your journey into the cannabis space?
I mean, so first off, my full love is the soil, right? I fell in love. My first memory was my hands in the soil growing, not growing at the time, but a tomato patch or a strawberry patch. And every year I had, that's the most consistent thing in my life, that and peanut butter, right? My first memories were peanut butter. I eat peanut butter every day today. But I am, and then I want to say there's no segregation in agriculture, and that's just a fucking fact, man. Our world is fucked up. The cannabis, it's pushed the cannabis side of this down so far, but cannabis is only a very minute percent of agriculture, but it sets the bar for all of agriculture to come up to. So my relationship with cannabis goes back into agriculture and growing. I grow soil, right? Healthy soil produces a plant, right? I don't grow plants. I feel like that's a mistake and a misthought. You know, a lot of people want to look at and they're growing plants, but they never grow any soil. They're not growing the medium, right? They use this bullshit medium and they throw a bunch of bullshit product on it and they say, look at my plant. Your plant looks like shit. It does, you know. Grow your soil, man. Once you get that healthy colonies of fungal and bacteria and you're growing soil, that soil will grow anything. It'll grow anything you want, right? So the fact is, just going back to cultivating 101 is growing soil, man. And so at a young age, that's always been me. Is I've always planted when, you know, people were out you know, playing sports and doing things like that. Man, I was growing fucking sunflowers. I was growing everything I possibly could as a kid. That was my passion, you know, to the point where you know, the first time I was in handcuffs was the age of 11 for growing weed in a pine tree, right? So second time I was in handcuffs was the same pine tree when I was 12. And I didn't learn my lesson. I learned that street smarts at 13 moving on. But, you know, so that was my thing. And I had a passion for plants and cultivating, right, soil and what it can produce as a young. I mean, this has just been my thing. It's been my purpose on this planet. It's always brought me back to the serenity. When I have a lot of depression, anxiety, you know, I'm a fucking an alcoholic and a drug addict, recovered. I've been in recovery for 35 years. I'm green and sober. I haven't been clean for 35 years, but I've been in recovery. Well, actually, since the age of 13, and so this plant has always brought me back in the misery of my life, you know, always have. And even when I was in San Quentin, I was finding spots out in the lawn in the corner to grow shit. It's just so fucking weird, you know. But the relationship with soil, it's my counselor. It's my meditation. I could have the worst day on the planet and I can go right out here. I got a victory garden, or go up the street to my cannabis patch. And I can walk in there, I can touch, I can listen, I can thrive, and my depression will go away, right? My anxiety will relax. You know, it's my pharmaceutical, to be honest with you. And then,
Yeah,
you know, so I mean,
it's therapy for a lot of people. And do
yeah.
you find that the state of your mental health has a direct correlation to the health of your garden? Ever?
All the time, man. That's why I walk through my gardens barefoot. I'm barefoot. I made King Kashi compost that I use 30,000 gallons of EM1 on this fucking compost that I made. Badass, right? Not municipality garbage. We'll go into other shit later on or another episode. I can dive deep, but I actually go out and I take a pinch of this shit and I put it in my lip like a chew of tobacco in the mornings, and I'll drink a cup of coffee and I feed my biosystem with that probiotic and all that.
Yeah.
I don't recommend that for everybody because you have to. I don't eat all the soil. I don't eat big roots, right? I don't eat all this soil. It's not a thing, but it keeps me really, really healthy. And I also test it, so I know I test for lots of different things in the soil, but the biggest one is what the fuck, E. coli. I test for E. coli, right? So King Kashi compost, which is I think it's 80 parts per million or whatever it is, E. coli is allowed in compost. Really, it's not. No one sets the bar what's allowed and what's not, but it's workable and okay. I have 0.0.
Nice.
It comes back.
That's nice.
So I eat that shit, absolutely. But so yeah, that's my serenity. It's my peace. It's my relationship. And you know, I can fight with the old lady and walk out in the backyard, and 5 minutes later, my whole mood is gone, and I want to go back in and tell her I love her. Like, that's what it does for me, you know? It's crazy.
So we know that you are part of your story was very intertwined with Subcool. So could you give us a bit of that backstory? Because a lot of our, you know, the roots, you know, I guess pun intended, the roots of our community are so intertwined with Subcool.
Yeah.
Like JR was just saying earlier, a lot of us learn from Subcool.
There's drama in that I could talk about too. I don't know if everybody wants to hear.
No, we'll leave that part out. Let's leave that
for another
part
episode,
out.
I guess, or whatever.
But no, the thing I was most curious about, Patrick, is you know, you have kind of a amended soil style that is kind of similar to what we grew up in the Weed Nerds with the super soil.
Yeah.
And I know in the beginning they started the lasagna layering, and then
Yeah.
it went to more of a blended soil.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about the beginning of those days and the journey of the super soil and all that stuff?
Yeah, totally. So actually the history on soil, because Willie at Fox Farm, I hung out with Willie back in the day, and Rootz Organic. Like this is where I'm at with these guys, right? So it's kind of interesting especially on the super soil recipe. I forget the name who originated that. Sub got a hold of, and Sub was right on all that, man. He was, you can create a somewhat water only soil and be super fucking awesome at the end of your cultivation. Of course, there's all these, the main question I get with a super soil or any of my product is, can I put water? Can I just pour water in it from start to finish? And there's so many variables, right? I'm like, you can't grow a plant in a 1 gallon fucking pot with super soil or expect it to do anything and not add anything to it, right? Because there's a food source that's allowed in it, and then it runs out. So the bigger pot, like my indoor that I like to run, is in beds, or I really like I do 1 gallon or 3 gallon in veg, and I would flip it in super soil. When there's water only, I would flip that into like a 10 gallon pot, right? And in bloom. So I'd go like 3 weeks in veg, grab that pot and throw it into 10 gallons of soil, right? Super soil. And so people don't really understand on this. In the soil game, there's two things that really matter is the volume of soil. So you're in a really healthy cultivation. If you weighed out the roots versus the foliage on top of the plant versus the roots, you should have in a healthy environment more root than you do mass above. Crazy to think that, but that's the truth. So when you limiting your pot size, you're stressing your plant, right? Indoor, outdoor, greenhouse, doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter if it's cannabis, doesn't matter if it's a fucking pine tree. It doesn't matter. You're eliminating that you're stressing that plant. So therefore you have to add more bottle nutrients, more things, because imagine you growing up and living in a fucking baby sleeping bag, but then all of a sudden being 30 years old and still fitting in that sleeping bag. That's what we do to our plants, and we don't think about that. So when I say veg, your roots, as soon as your roots start going to root bound, your plant's going to go into a shock and it's going to start stressing. And so if you can take that out of veg and throw it into a bigger pot with more soil, the roots are going to expand. And with all of our cultivation and beta testing, we have more root development by a long shot in bloom than we ever do veg. Okay, so when you think about it, if you guys are out there and you're going through veg and you pull your plant out, you can see all the roots and it hasn't even got to bloom yet. Just think about what those roots need to do in the next fucking 5 or 6 weeks or whatever your run is going to be on that. It has no room, so you're starving it. So, and also the soil it's already ran out of everything it has. So a bigger environment on water only is totally the way to do it. I love beds is what I love to do. And the other thing about water only and super soil is you reuse it. So my motto is to buy a bag and use it 10 plus times, right? That's not what my competitors are ever going to tell you. They're going to say, buy a bag, fucking throw it out, buy another bag, throw it out, buy another bag, throw it out. I go to these compost and these soil, conventions, these different things. And these, I walk in there and these guys, I just piss them all off. They shake their heads. They're like, fuck, who does that in business? Tell somebody to fucking not come back for more, right?
Right.
Like, but it's this business. My business isn't about selling soil. My business is about changing the world one plant at a time with responsible cultivation. And that's where my soul is. That's my purpose. It's always been the flow, and it always will remain that way. And I'll sell lots of soil doing it. I don't have to fucking tell you to buy one bag and throw it away. So that's where the super soil is really important that way. The other second element to it is fungal and biology. Okay, super important. Sourcing fungal biology, oxygen, right? These are super important things, because the more biology, fungal, and the more colonies of bacteria, healthy bacteria that you have in it, the less fertilizers you're ever going to need to use or put into it. Because if you just think about guano, right, or minerals or whatever it is in a granular that you top dress with, all of that leftover stuff that doesn't melt and isn't soluble, all that granular, which it can be 50% of it, sometimes 60% of it, that is not available to the plant until the biology eats it, shits it out. And, you know, if you have good, healthy fungal in there, it'll make it immediately available to the plant for the plant to systemically take it up. So if you just think of 50% of all the top dress you put in there never goes to the plant, that means you got 50% of that top dress that's ready to break down over time. So you might, let's say our run we're running right now, we're throwing some top dress in there. If you save that soil 2 years down the road, some of those granulars will still be a feed source for bacteria and still utilizing that, you know, years down the road as a food source for the plant. So you're eliminating the need for overfeeding, right, and overdoing things. The other thing I love to talk about on the soil side of it, if I'm going on a tangent, just let me know. Just tell me to shut up. The other important thing, there's two other really important things, and one is we talk about the size of roots. How do you grow those roots that big? It's through proper diet, proper water, but most importantly, plants and soil are just like us. It needs oxygen. Just like if we went hiking in the Swiss Alps and we had the best food, you know, we had the best water, but we had no oxygen, we'd be fucked. So when we're dealing with plants with low oxygen in an annual, not a perennial, an annual is a plant that has a very short lifespan to live, and it dies off within a few months, right? 6 months or whatever, 3 months or whatever. Perennial is a plant like a shrub or bush you plant, and it has a lifetime of growth with its roots. It doesn't die off. So in an annual perennial plant lifetime, it doesn't need that oxygen. Hard pan is good, but with a lettuce or a cannabis or a tomato or, you know, any kind of plant that's an annual, it needs to do everything and grow as fast as it can in a short amount of time so it can produce the best quality of whatever that cultivar is growing up. So we have to assist the soil in the environment for that root mass to go explosive. And we never think like that, right? So super important to have really oxygenated soil. Perlite isn't oxygenated. Like, that's a fucking joke, right? I go back on that all the time. In a nursery application, it's a little different, you know, because it's really soft and gentle for baby roots. But in a full grow term, unless you're using it one run, you know, it's a waste. I'd never use it. And back in the day, I always talk about this. The reason why, and people, it's a shock and awe, but the reason why perlite on the soil manufacturing was so important for the manufacturer wasn't to sell you something so you can have oxygen. Perlite saturates up, right? Breaks down to nothing, and then floats to the top and fucking makes a mess everywhere. That's its use. It's garbage, right? It's just a waste. And when we back in the soil manufacturing, if you put a third perlite in a 1.5 cubic foot bag, perlite weighs 0. That means that a third of that bag is a less weight. Therefore, you could put a third more bags on a full truckload and ship it across the country for free and not have to pay for it under the weight strains, right?
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Now, you had mentioned something to me because I kind of was talking to you in a little pre-interview about my style of making all this microbial life in these 10-gallon pots, and then at the end of flower, I throw it out. And I made a comment to you that, man, I'm building all this microbes, and microbes are expensive. And you told me, brother, microbes are not expensive. So Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, totally. First off, there's a lot of way to create your own biology, right? And there's a lot of different bacteria you can cultivate yourself. But if you're buying something off the shelf, let's say Primordial Solutions Seed Green, right, or something like that, that shit's super awesome. It's got the trillion forms of bacteria in every teaspoon. And why do I know that? Because I'm the guy that throws it to the lab, right? I count the colonies, right? People have claims on a bottle. I can go through a whole array of products that I found next to nothing or nothing in it that they claim that was in it that people are paying shit tons of money for. I'm not going to blast anybody out, but you can guarantee they heard from me. Right? I did that. But so colony bacteria is like, it's like a fish in a fishbowl. I always like to put it. Your fish will grow to a certain size and then it's not going to grow anymore. Colonies of bacteria, depending on the species of bacteria, some die out very quickly, some take a few days, but they're only going to build out these healthy colonies to the expansion of their area. So if it's in a 3-gallon pot or a 10-gallon pot or whatever, it's only going to grow, but they're just just like worms go dormant, right? What it does is it'll keep reproducing themselves. So once you build the colonies of bacteria in your soil, you don't have to keep spending money re-inoculating it. Right. The only time you want to re-inoculate it is if you have some bad pathogens in there and you have to wipe out the colonies of bacteria with enzymes or whatever you're going to use to kill off all the bacteria, and you're doing a re-inoculation, then it can be costly if you're buying stuff on the shelf. So I always hear that too, is organics is super expensive. Bullshit, man. It's like your mother, walk around and look what Mother Nature does. She ain't fucking throwing no dollars at it. You know, it's like, yeah. I mean, you know, and it can be good. You just have, and it's not fully easy getting it right either. That's why I consult for a lot of indoor. We do a lot of indoor switching over from organics or to organics from a salt-based program like Carter Creek Cannabis for one. I took them completely over. And a bunch of them we took over. But when we start on these, my suggestion is don't do the entire process. Don't just like wipe everything out and start all over, man. Take a section and let's cultivate side by side, right? Let's get it right, because once you dial it in, it's dialed in. Like you barely have to do anything to it. Your soil's doing all the work. The biology, fungal's doing all the work. So the dollar, you know, you're not spending shit in organics once it's right. But if you try to do organics and you're replacing a full room and you don't have the knowledge, or let's say people always say they're the best, you know, they can grow organically the best, they see it happen over and over and they don't. And then all these investors will put all this money into them and they fail. And it's just because, you know, they don't really know what they're doing. So you got to figure out what you're doing. But once your system is intact, it runs on itself, man. Yeah, it's crazy.
I wanted to jump in and give a shout out to Richard 420 grams. He said he's been using his Big Rootz Soil King soil since 2018. I'd say that I'm using. I could say maybe even the same year, because basically what I started doing when I moved into the place that I'm in now, I moved in here in 2018, I think it was. And so basically I had a ton of, 15-gallon bags or whatever it was of Soil King soil. And then one year I dumped that out and made a giant raised bed of it. And then the next year, and now what I have going is I took this is all the same soil. I took it out of the raised bed and then I put it into 30-gallon pots, because now I have like 6 30-gallon pots. And all I did each time is I added in compost, and I have added in dry amendments. But what I've been doing this year, what I really love this year that's been working great for me, is adding in worm castings. I've been making my own worm castings.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what I like to do is,
yes.
What, to your point about how, yes, I did buy a bunch of Soil King soil, several years ago, but I still do buy new bags, because what I do is I'll buy new bags for example, I'm growing microgreens. And so I'll get a new bag of Soil King, grow my microgreens in it, and then I'll recycle that little sheet of soil. I'll recycle it by throwing it in the worm bin after I harvest the microgreens. So then I can take those worm castings and use it in my weed garden. So it's really cool how you can still, all this stuff kind of sticks around. And like you were saying, the pumice that you put that you put in instead of perlite, all these things really stick around. So I know that was a little bit of ramble, but also an endorsement, but I'll get to a question. And the question came from Hunter Gatherer, and he said, what's the best way to amend my soil? So I buy some Big Rootz or whatever it is, and I've got, like maybe a 30-gallon pot or whatever, and I want to get it ready for the next year or the next grow? How do I reamend it?
That's a great question, and I know him. That's awesome. First, before I jump into the question, I just came out with Soil King Micro Mix. So it's for your microgreen mix, right? So I have A&M out of Texas, and we'll go into that. But I got that whole mix CDFA certified. I mean, it's rocking for you on that. I'll have to get you some of that. But to answer that question is pretty easy. And I know I don't talk about it enough, and I should more. Reamending is super easy. So I take, we all love the theory of no-till, but in beds and pots, it's very difficult, So I do like to leave all the smaller roots and chop them up. I do like to do that. I don't like to completely till everything up. But the rule of thumb right now is at the end of the run, as long as you're not going with any salt-based products in it, I use Mr. B's Green Trees 744. I use 12 to 15 pounds per yard, right? So a 30-gallon pot, the 200-gallon pot is a yard. So a 30-gallon pot is what? I don't know, just a little over a quarter of a yard. So that would be, less than 5 pounds. It'd be like 3.5 pounds per 30-gallon pot. And then again, healthy, clean sourced. I got to keep saying clean source worm castings. The sourcing, what the worm eats, it condenses it down and shits it out. And a lot of these worm producers feed garbage to these worms, and that's, it's garbage in, garbage out times 10, right? So get healthy worm castings, and put them in there. The enzymes and the bacteria, we haven't even touched the surface of naming or knowing what type of bacteria is coming out of worm castings. And we can identify probably 5% really of what it is. There's so much value coming out of a worm, right? So you throwing it in there. I love worm castings. The other thing I love about worm castings is, my top dressing. When I top dress, I get a 5-gallon bucket. I throw, a few handfuls of like 50-50 mix, or actually 75% to 25% castings to Mr. B's Green Trees or whatever fertilizer. You ever walked out there with top dressing and it's blowing in your face and you're breathing fucking guanos and minerals and the wind's blowing? If you put that and mix it with castings, the moisture settles it down and you're adding a biological kick at the same time you're top dressing. Pour it all around, scratch it in, does fucking wonders, man, like that. So I always add worm castings. You don't need, a lot of people over fertilize when they're reamending soil. Remember, if you have colonies of bacteria, you still have a lot of fertilizers and minerals still left over that it'll be processing through the entire next one. So you're just really adding a kick to it, for the solubility that's coming out of it. You're on mute.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that explanation. And we had people in chat putting up the notes emoji, like they're taking notes on.
And I have a question for you about that. You had mentioned, obviously the best way would be for us to have our own worm bin and create our own worm castings, and that way we know what's going into it. Can you make recommendations for the people of reliable commercial sources or even just retail sources that we can get good castings for us that are not able to do that?
Well, we're working on sourcing castings again right now. I used to work with Sonoma Worm Farm, which was oh my god, now it's Terravesco.
Oh yeah,
I worked with them for a long time, and I was buying truckloads and full truckloads of totes because I put it all in Big Roots, and I'm just gonna call it like it is, man. The quality has gone down since the bigger they got by a long shot, and they started using a lot of rice hulls, and they were using rice hulls as a filler. And I don't have this factualized, but I have the feeling in my gut because I know the castings because I've been working with the owner from the very beginning from Sonoma Worm Farm. And they were bringing in other castings and mixing it with and diluting it with rice hulls with theirs, and so that was an issue. So I don't like to recommend unless I do the testing on it right now. What there's a company called Silverbait Cat out of Tennessee. Now that they got the worm craze, they think they're the king of the mountain too. But they were doing a really good product, and they were using a lot of peat moss. Okay, and peat moss is super clean. Depending on the bog where it comes from, there's even levels of sodium and EC levels in certain bogs in the UK. But out of Canada, a lot of that peat moss is just so clean it hasn't been fucked by man.
Yeah.
And so they force a lot of that feed on that, and then they were using some really good compost mixed with organic manure a little bit as well with that at one point, and their castings were on. It was super on point. And
that was Silverbait.
It was called Silverbait out of Tennessee. Yeah. You can look them up online. That was a good one. And so right now I'm working on. I got actually a bunch of labs, a bunch of testing right now on some other products I'm working with. I'm working on some cool fucking shit, man.
Yeah.
King Kashi castings. All right, come on, man. Like, let's go. Like, fermented castings out of a bag, like it's already fucking charged with your probiotics. Yeah. Like, there's some cool shit.
I can't wait to dive into some of that stuff with you, because there's some really next level shit that's going down in the way that people are using these interactions rather than the conventional way we've been sold at the hydro store for all these years. So kind of stepping back a little bit, I always like to pull things back. When do you think you really kind of became the soil king?
So it was like I started in 2006. I kind of the name kind of came out, right, and I was a builder developer and growing some weed on the side. 2008, I started really growing weed again and scaling it, and I didn't do it for the money. I grew everything, right? I had a huge vegetable fucking patch, 75 by 35. I fed the food bank, all the food, my local community. I feed people. That's what I do. Like, I grow shit and feed people, right? And so as the 08 down, the market changed in the housing market. Just in this little town of Cloverdale, I built 67 homes, and
Jesus.
And
that's a lot of fucking houses, man.
Yeah. And so, but I was trying to live this other fucking life and not be who my purpose was. So when the crash happened in 08, it was perfect for me because I was able to land on my feet running and doing what I wanted to do. And that was making soil and growing shit. So the Soil King kind of popped up at the same time as, if you ever heard me say, redwood trees with pineapples, right? That was, I was growing these fucking plants that were so big, and you go down River Road in Sonoma County in Cloverdale, California. And I remember my neighbors were like, someone's growing weed around here that smells like skunk, but they never seen fucking trees, right?
So they didn't even
fucking trees, right? They were over the fence, and I had all my gardens, my vegetable gardens. I fed everybody, so they just thought that nobody clued in. It was so funny, right? And finally, my good friend John Jennings, he's like, motherfucker, my neighbors were all out there having a powwow about it's not skunk. Somebody's growing weed in the fucking area, right? And I'm like, I'm laughing, right? Because they have no clue. They've only seen little plants and been in indoor, and they've never really grown, nothing under a pound plant or less. And so John said, motherfucker, fucking, they walk right by your fence and they don't see the redwood trees with pineapples, right? And they're standing right across the street having this fucking powwow about somebody's growing weed. And we're looking, and you can see the fucking guts over the top of the fence. They had no clue, right? That's what great. Redwood trees with pineapples was coined, right? So that's about the time Soil King, and I'm like, fuck it, I got to do this shit. I got so tired of buying garbage fucking compost and bullshit fucking bag soil. And back then I was testing. That's the other thing. everybody called me fucking stupid, right? Why would you test, you know? And I knew I can do better, so I started making my own soils. I started with Marley mix. I started with Marley Moonshine, Marley Shroom Bloom, which was a mushroom compost. Marley Moonshine was Marley mix with inoculated tea on my, you know, I run it through the trommel, and I had these big hoses with this tea brewer I did, and I inoculate the soil as it's going up the trommel. And I was killing it back then. And then all of a sudden I started really testing, and I was buying compost from the municipality green waste, and I figured out how toxic it really is. And I put so much, and I've sold so much of this organic. Same thing as today. These guys sell this organic shit, but I would never fucking call it organic. And so I said, I got to start over. I need a new mix. I need a new design. And I went and created Big Roots after that. But that's where kind of Soil King got started. And so the implode of the 08 housing market put me on the path to where I'm supposed to be, put me back on the track that I was born to be on. Instead of I didn't get anything out of building houses, right? Yeah, it was kind of nice. I built a house. Whoopee. I fucking grow some badass weed and got my mom to fucking smoke it. It was called Mama's Boy 20-1. And she was given less than 3 months to live, and she lived for fucking 2 years, and she didn't go through a bunch of opiates and everything else, and I carried her out of this fucking world. That's the shit that fucking this plant has given me, you know?
Yeah.
Well, let's dive into the Big Roots soil and what goes into that. I will comment too that I bought some of the new bags recently, just a few weeks ago, or just a week ago, actually, at the GrowGen Concord store. So
Awesome.
shout out to those guys.
Yeah, shout out to them.
They've always supported you.
Tim is over there. Is it Tim? What the fuck? Rob? No, Tim. Fuck. What's his name? He's a great friend of mine.
I know. Yeah, the guy. I forget anyway, that guy's. Yeah,
he's been with Spare Time and everything else before. And
don't worry, he's not going to watch this show.
Even if he does, I do this to him all the time.
Yeah,
exactly. You have that one person in your life. You're all, what's up, homeboy? How's it going, James? He's all, fuck, I know you for 20 fucking years. My name's not James, but I tell you this every time. Oh yeah, you just always have that one guy. You know?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I picked up some new bags, and I noticed that the consistency seemed like it was a little bit different. It was fluffier now. It was there. Has this next generation of Big Roots, is it a little bit different? Tell us about kind of what went into it.
Just a little bit more, I would say. I used to work with SunGrow, and it was a fight for quality control. So I was always up there because quality control was my everything. And they started switching composts on me. I don't no longer work with them anymore. So we built a whole plant down in Bakersfield, California, and we have. Because we can't find any clean compost, and this is serious, man. And I couldn't find compost in Oregon. I was trying to ship up here that tested without heavy metals or glyphosates or I couldn't all across the fucking country, anywhere in California. So we started producing our own compost. We got 20 acre composting facility in addition now, and we make our own compost. So the different element is you got higher quality compost that's coming in it. Nothing else on the formula has changed. There's a couple variables in the bags. You know, one I have older style bag with more white on it, and now the black bags, same product on the inside. I just changed the bag. Quit buying bags from China and started buying them here in the U.S. and it cost me a little bit more, and that's the black bag.
Okay, so, cool.
Do you mind us?
Go ahead, Jerry.
I'm sorry. Do you mind us talking a little bit about that bag situation in Oregon and why?
I don't mind at all. Yeah.
Let us know why we don't find your product in Oregon. Really,
I mean, I need to go through.
That upsets me and fires me up a little bit.
I had OIM after I think it was in 2019. Had to have been in 2019. I had my bags going up into Oregon. 2017 and 18 they were up in Oregon. 2019, right in there. I got an email from OIM. I think it's OIM, right? Yeah. And they said I had a claim on the bag and they needed me to change it and I can no longer sell within the state. and it was a shocker, right? And I'm like, fuck, it's CDFA, everything else is good. And so I scrapped my bags and I ordered over 100,000 new printed bags. I think I ended up with 120,000 new printed bags. And when those inventory came in and I started filling them, I got an email saying that that I needed to switch it back to the original thing, and that the new claim that I changed was no good. And it just fucking drove me insane, right? I was like, this is fucking so much bullshit, right? So I'm still sitting on like 70 fucking thousand open mouth bags from 2019 right now that I never fucking used. And I quit. I didn't go out and reprint them, but now I have to go to, I go to roll stock versus open mouth, but that's a whole different thing. So I got fucked out of the state, and it was just, at the time, it was probably somebody new in the office, and
No, it's not.
okay.
It's
And
not
I'm able to
uncommon.
sell in there. They told me I needed to change it back, and I wasn't. And to order a fucking that many bags, you have
That's a
to
lot.
print it up, right? It's
Yeah.
like $15,000, and it's a fucking 6 to 8 month wait. Like back then, it was like 6 to 8 month wait. Now it's down. It's like a 4 month wait. But
Yeah,
it,
no,
it was
you're
like
not the
crazy.
only person that they did that to, and that was a way to kind of stifle you guys from setting up, in my opinion, a good economy in our state.
Yeah.
And so that we had several products that they would do shifty stuff like that would end up costing you so much money. And then they put a stop loss on your product on the shelf. And then why would you play in a state that does, tomfoolery like that?
And then when they put a stop, everybody's impression is that you had contaminated product.
Yes. Or it's bad.
So that's
for
even
some
worse.
reason.
So I had to go through some of that drama and clean it up with Oregon. That it was just a print bag change that needed to happen. But I took it on the chin as contaminated product, or something was wrong with the product. So I'm not going to knock OIM, because I feel like the standard is set across the United States. Do I think there was some funny play from a competitor in Oregon? Yeah, I think I think there was parts to get played on that as well too. I was coming in super strong. I was coming in with spare time. I was hitting it. I had truckloads fucking on the ground, just waiting for distribution, and it was all approved and ready to go. And then I got to pull your shit notice, And so I kind of think there was something going on in the back end, right? On a fear that I was coming in.
Yeah, I was bummed about that.
Be.
I was really bummed about that, because I had talked to you, I think, at the 2018 Emerald Cup, and you had mentioned stuff was going down, and then it was just I could never find it.
And then I just haven't changed it, and I really haven't asked OIM since then. It cost me too much time and money, and I plan on going back there. But the other thing is I had a hard time with those stores trying to support it too, which was funny. It was like, so I go direct to consumers now in Oregon every fucking day. I ship pallets and totes and truckloads and all that.
Yeah.
Direct. If you're a consumer or you want a pallet, hit me up, Patrick at the Soil King or Michael at thesoilking.com. Just hit us up on social media, and we'll get you quoted out on that. We do that all across the country every day, and that's how I've been taking care of really Washington and Oregon like that.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've seen you post lately that I thought was cool, that you've been offering, is you've been offering people the ability to make their own custom blends. I thought that was a really interesting idea. Is that I guess, are there use cases I could make my own custom blend for my farm or whatever, or also are people making their own soil that they're selling? I just think that's such a cool idea that you're opening up to people.
As a Soil King, I Big Rootz is an awesome blend. I'm working on some cool shit moving past that. As we grow, right? The last thing I really don't want to use plastic bags. I don't like using fucking plastic bags. Everything else dries up or falls apart. Hard to get around that. I don't want to ship inputs from all over the world. I really don't. But it works. It works really fucking great. So I'm coming out with King Kashi compost and all this other stuff. But with what I know about sourcing and the connections I have in this space on the manufacturing side of quality, because there's not an input mineral fertilizer company out there that's not going to pitch me something because they know what I'm going to do to it, right? And so when I have access to the best of the best. So I really, if I had to snapshot right now the next 5 years, a lot of farms, they want to do their own blends, like not Silicon Valley, but Salinas Valley, right? It's Monterey County, has a lot of moisture in it. So you have to adapt and make a custom mix for that area that works a little better on big, we're talking big scale cultivations. So a lot of these custom people, they're trying to get these custom blends or doing, like a lot of people will buy a lot of big roots, truckloads, and then they'll add a little more choir to it. They'll add a little something to it. And I'm thinking, I don't have to be the guy at the retail market. If I can get this fucking dirty compost in our country out of the bag mix or out of the mix designs, and I can be the source of building quality inputs into a mix design that works for you, whether it's in fucking fruit trees, almond trees, a fucking Christmas tree farm, cannabis, regenerative agriculture, whatever I can do on that design, that's the scale I want to go. I want to build soils for certain, just like we talk about terroirs and appellations, right? The soil is different in different appellations, and I want to be able to build quality soil mix lines for the area that you're living in. Oklahoma needs a little bit more, right? We've got a lot of humidity and heat, right? Things like that. I've came out with island roots for Hawaii. I ship it out to St. Croix and the Virgin Islands, and because it's just a little bit different. And so, yeah, that's my future right now. Is if somebody wants to do 100 yards or more, I'll quote them or a full truckload, 75 yards or more. I'll help them. And not only that, I have the best fucking grower techs. And a grower tech is, my grower tech graduated with masters in soil production from A&M or whatever it is in Texas. Like the biggest motherfuckers in the world are working with me on soil designs, quality inputs, analytics, and backing it all up. And not just that, specifically made for whatever cultivar is being planted. So, I have all that. Why won't I, kick the fucking shitty stuff, that's contaminating our countryside to the side and start.
Well, I have a question about that as well. I know there's certain soil companies that will try to set up on the East Coast, and they're trying to provide, say, a forested material or a forested compost, and it may not be available in their area in the form that they would have it, say, on the West Coast. Yeah. So those challenges of making a consistent, super important, whether you want to say bag or toad or whatever, can you kind of talk about those challenges?
That is a fucking brilliant question, and this is where my experience since about 2015. I've been I was trying to make big roots in Utah. I was trying to make big roots in Chicago, outside of Chicago, Illinois, Michigan, right? And so I was finding, and now North Carolina. And so what I found out is I was trying to make big roots, but I was utilizing their native woods, right? Because wood is important, especially with fungal. And the success of my soils have always come from what's called lignopede, which is triple grind redwood bark, really shredded like monkey hair, but really chopped up really fine, looks like a peat moss. And that is such a carbon source and a food source for biology and fungal. It's the key that binds it all together. And so I've been trying to use hard pine over, eastern hard pine, and I tried all these other woods, and I could never. Some of them had too much tannins in it, and it never really could come out to. And then I'd send it out, and we do these beta trials. Finally, I'm like, fuck it. I can't replicate what I'm doing over here in quality, and I can't say Fox Farm is a prime example of this. Fox Farm picked up, went to the East Coast, and started making their Fox Farm over there using inputs from over there, right? Using the wood from over there. Completely different mix. Yeah. Completely fucked up everybody's fucking grows.
It fucked mine up. That's when I switched. I switched to Royal Gold after that. I started getting yellow mushrooms in my Fox Farm shit, and then I would also get just random die-offs, like where like two plants would just go, like they would get pathogens, root pathogens that would just take them out.
You know what that is?
What is that? Hell?
That's OMRI certified municipality green waste compost garbage. That's all the bullshit, all that toxicity. That's, you know how the compost or the recycle facilities make their compost pile. They throw so much fucking garbage in there. I mean, if you just think about, I'm going to go in there. I'm not going to drag this out because we can save this for a whole nother thing. But just think of what a street sweeper in San Francisco picks up.
Yeah, well,
you know, all that. Think about, and that goes into the organic compost, right?
Right.
Think about what I always say, you know, how much wrapping paper at Christmas do we use around the country? Just think of the volume of that, and then think of where that comes from, and then think of what is on it. You know, the shiny ink, the heavy metals, full of toxicity. All that goes into these recycled plants that make compost that Fox Farm and all these other places buy at $12 a fucking ton or less, and they bring it in and they make all these their products with it. And then you're all of a sudden you got a pocket of glyphosate or herbicides or toxic anything that goes in there. As soon as your root hits one of those pockets, that fucker dies. And so we're now blaming what we put on the plant. You go on social media, everybody's got 100 different fucking things, what it is, but nobody's talking about the fucking contaminated OMRI fucking crap.
Well, you know, it's funny because thanks to social media and that, I was able to look at other people who I knew were using it and they were having the same issues.
Yes.
So I knew there was a problem across the board. It wasn't just my bag from my
shop.
I
make my own compost. That's why I fucking fight this fucking fight, man.
Yeah. So talk a little more about that consistency stuff and how important that sourcing is for everything across the board that's in Big Roots.
Super important. You know, sourcing is everything, and we can go into hours of this, but I'm gonna graze it really quickly. You know, peat moss coming from Canada is, you know, that's fucking 100,000 years old, 200,000 years old. We're pulling out of the ground. It's irreplaceable. In Canada, there's so many fucking billions of square acres of it. There's a lot of it. So the resource isn't really running out, but we also are digging it out and we're taking it over here. And there's a problem with that. Consciously, you know, we can do it better. So I'm working on better stuff. I'll never get rid of the original Big Roots, but I'm working on some cool stuff. Like putting fucking coir. Everybody says coir's clean and hell. Coir's fucking dirty, man. The extraction of it, the processing of it. You put it on fucking barges. You're shipping it across the ocean. You know, you're rinsing it out. The sodium's going down in the watersheds. It's a fucking nightmare. And so, you know, I have to really test all my from either Egypt or not Egypt, but India or Sri Lanka or now coming out of Mexico. All of it has so many problems. Plus, a lot of times they're putting them in these gas chambers and gassing them because they're trying to kill all the biology in it as well. And so you have no bugs when it's coming over. So it's really
because it has to be able to get into the border.
Yeah. So I mean, there's nothing really responsible about buying fucking containers of cocoa coir and putting it on barges across the fucking
it's not
here and put it. So, you know, consciously I'm getting better at that, right? I understand that. So sourcing is super important. Minerals super important. CDFA is really good. I love CDFA, except for now they've come to a pay to play kind of situation a lot more too, right? Big Roots is Sun and Earth approved. I don't talk about that a lot. If you ever heard of Sun and Earth certified,
I have actually.
Yeah, we've met those guys.
So I'm Sun and Earth approved through Sun and Earth. Clean green. I've always been clean green, CDFA, and you know, it's because they all know what I do and how I do it. And when anybody asks me for results, I can whoop anybody's ass with cleaner fucking results on inputs. You know, my blood meal comes from a pig, right? So you think about blood meals, right? Just think, so blood, right? Here's my heart. I'm a cow. right? I'm raised in a fucking pen. I'm shitting all over my feet. I'm yelling, there's my niece, there's my daughter, there's my fucking father, there's my aunts and uncles, and they're putting them in line to a slaughterhouse, and I'm in the line now with them. All that fear, energy, anxiety, watching your fucking relatives get murdered is all broken in your heart. It's in your heart. The energy's trapped in the blood meal. That's fucking toxic shit, right? And it's a byproduct they got to do something with. And then these guys sell bags of blood meal and say, oh, this is great for your cultivation.
Yeah,
Man, if you're in touch with the earth, or you know about stones and energy, that's the last thing you want. So we go out and we try to source really good pig where the pigs aren't humanely slaughtered, right? They don't know this is going on. They're fed well. So, I mean, and to be able to source that kind of stuff, it's very difficult to understand that.
Yeah.
And people, you know, again, my industry of soil builders laugh at me for this shit. They call me fucking dumb.
No, I mean, this is.
You do that, you fucking idiot, right? I'm like, because I'm fucking king of the mountain, motherfuckers. That's why.
No, this stuff is really important.
Grab the belt loop while I kick you off the mountain.
Yeah, this stuff is really important. Ethical sourcing of ingredients is something that's important to people like me, for sure. I guess on that, since we're towards the end of our interview, I'll throw a couple quick questions at you. One quick question, I guess, on that point, I'm tempted to just ask you, have you thought about selling dry amendment mixes like directly? Like I have my, you know, big roots and I need to re-amend it next year. Have you thought about selling like a dry amendment mix?
Man, this is exactly where I'm at right now. So, you know, I went through a fucking storm in the last 18 months, right? Lost everything, $3.5 million. You know, one of my companies I bankrupt. Haven't talked a lot about that. You know, I rebuilt my business going the other direction, bigger, better, and wiser. And in the whole process, I just don't have the resources and funds, but I have an entire fucking line of fertilizers, amendments, all this really cool tech shit that would, I mean, world changing stuff across big agriculture. But I'm really looking for a partner that, you know, wants to come in as a business partner. We need a warehouse to do it at, and I need to buy, in order for me to buy the products at the, you know, less than price than anybody else can get them, which I can. I need a little bit of money, resources. So I really need to take, and so yes, that entire skew of lines of everything from fucking cover crop seeds to fucking soy products from France to everything is done, and just finances are holding me back.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would say as if I'm pitching for somebody that has some money that wants to make some real money in any industry, the hardest thing to do is you have a manufactured product and you try to market it. I built the fucking marketing machine. This is a fucking put the key in, turn, and watch the revenue fucking fly back, at the same time consciously helping the world do better and become better.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate, I've been watching, you know, you for years. And by the way, shout out to Patrick. He joined CannaBuzz very early on, actually. I remember. Just really appreciate your support. And then, like I said earlier, I've been using your products and I love it. And everything that you said earlier just reinforces, you know, why I love it. It's that ethical sourcing. It's that quality of ingredients. It's really caring about that kind of stuff, because I want to feel, you know, at the end of the day, I really want to feel good about whatever it is I'm growing, whether it's the weed I'm smoking, or I'm making a tincture for my dog, or something for my mom, or if I'm growing food and I'm feeding it to my wife, or, you know, I want to feel good about that. And with your products, I know that I can do that. And so
that's the key,
I just really appreciate that.
When you're pulling that fruit and you're feeding it to your fucking family, it's got all that intention and quality, and you know it's gone through rigorous testing. There's no bullshit.
Well, JR, do you have another last question or so before we let Patrick go this evening?
Yes, I do, Patrick.
If I could too.
Oh yeah, for sure, man.
Or one statement.
Yeah, go ahead.
One statement real quick. I keep fighting this. Is all these stores are wanting to pick up big roots or wanting to reorder, and they say it's too expensive. My price point needs to be with fucking Rootz Organic and Fox Farm. What I can tell you is fuck Rootz Organic and Fox Farm. They got shit on me. Quality costs fucking money. Okay? We're at a different level. They serve a purpose, and I'm not knocking them for that. but they cannot put me in that fucking shithole category any longer. So there you go, man. You're paying. If you pay $4 or $5 more for a bag of Big Roots, there's a reason. There's a fucking reason.
I would shout out for that. I would shout out for that as well.
Yeah, I just said, I opened, you know, those brand new bags in the black like you're talking about, and it's great quality. And yeah, I paid, I think it was like, you know, 19 something or whatever at GrowGen, but it's great quality. And yeah, just really appreciate all the thought and intention, you know, and work that goes into that product. But yeah, JR, what was that last question?
I got one more for you to rant about. So, or maybe not. When you drive by a hydro shop and you see a pallet of your soil sitting outside in 120-degree weather for 2 weeks, how do you feel about that?
I feel the same way. And this is why I just self-distribute my own shit now. It's the same thing for when I hydro farm and the distributors were distributing my soil and the stores. So it's the same way as they set it outside. They got it sitting next to a bunch of fucking bug-filled products, and mine's sitting right next to it.
Yeah,
because that's like it fucking sucks, man. Yeah, so I don't want my soil sitting outside. I mean, the only time they can ever sit outside if it's not in a bag.
Yeah,
it's not good. They should have it covered up, but you know, that's
right on,
still
brother.
good. Still good. It just biology dies. You know, fungal spores die. So,
it's something that drives me crazy. If I go up to a shop and I see everything on a pallet out in the yard outside, I just keep driving, you know.
That's true. Agreed. Thank you for that.
Right on,
That's a great question. I love that question.
We had a question from Richard, or 420 grams. He asked, is Taco Tuesday coming back?
Man, we're gonna do a Taco Tuesday for sure. It's just been so hard, man. The last couple of years has just been, you know, like I'm self-funded, right?
Yeah, man.
You know, it's just the way it is, bro. And you know, last year I lost $3.5 million. You know, I've been scraping and selling shit to get along this year and get back up on my feet. And just like, and I own Rosin Tech. We didn't even talk about that. I own 2 manufacturing facilities, 2 solventless facilities. I won first place the last 2 years in a row at the Emerald Cup with solventless, and all that is there's no fucking money in every avenue. Like I threw fucking millions and millions and millions of dollars in the last, you know, 7-8 years at this fucking thing, and there's no ROI. But I just keep getting up in the morning and figuring it out, you know.
Well,
I'm the first fucking micro license in California. First micro license ever given in California was to me, and I'm the motherfucker still standing with that license. And I do my own personal gardens and traditional gardens as well as the fucking regulated gardens. You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck.
So with that said, Patrick, life has thrown a lot of shit at you, right? You know, but especially it sounds like, you know, the last couple of years have been tough here and there. What's one lesson or kind of big takeaway that you could share with folks that, you know, I feel like every time I go through a really, really hard thing, I come through it and I learn something about myself or life or people or whatever. So yeah, what could you share with folks?
This is great because this is what I meditate and talk about and write down every day. First off, I've learned to write in a journal at night and in the morning. And I don't write, it's not like a to-do list or anything like that. It's certain things I liked about myself through the day, certain big tasks tomorrow. And I always point out qualities of myself because there's so much weight on your shoulders. If you're in this industry, you understand exactly what I'm saying. It's fucking weight bearing on your shoulders. So I write things down. I tell myself, even if there's 10 things that I did bad that day or didn't work out, I fucking write down that one that did. And I wake up reading that the next morning, the one I accomplished yesterday, not the 9 or 10 I failed. Super powerful. The other thing is is I really learned this lesson: reciprocal relationships versus acquaintances. So I built this fucking 747 right by hand over all these years. This badass plane, got it off the ground. We're all running it. All the homies and people that I feed are all in it. We're cruising and life is great. All of a sudden, it starts spitting and something starts happening. I'm running out of gas. Next thing I know, I turned around and every one of those motherfuckers put a backpack on and, you know, parachute and jumped out. And I was left at the wheel. And so that fucking 747 is coming straight down. I'm grabbing them handles. I'm pulling back and I fucking skid this motherfucker on the runway and it stops and there's no gas in it. And it's got a little bit of damage. It's a little broken. It fucking went through hell. It shouldn't even be here. And so I'm fixing it back together. I'm putting the fucking gas in it. And these same motherfuckers now show up saying, I knew you could do it. I knew you could land it. Can we get back in it? Right there, I learned the most valuable lesson is reciprocal relationships versus acquaintances. I can still love those people and I could still want their kids to have a great soccer game and I could still want success for their family. I could love and honor and respect all of that, right? And it's okay, but they're never going to get in the car again or the plane, right? The only ones that are going to get in the car and the plane are the ones that seen me at my fucking worst and told me they believed in me and that it's going to be okay. And there's less than this right now.
Right.
Right. And so the biggest thing I learned is when I build this thing and get it back in the air, I don't have to feed everybody anymore. I can take that money and use it for like because I do a lot of veteran help, right? Education with veterans and cultivation in agriculture, not just cannabis. And I can really do good on this earth and still love those who left me hanging, right? So the most valuable lesson is make sure you grab a journal because you're going to forget to love yourself, right? And know that who's on your team. At the end of the day, it might just be your fucking dog.
Yeah.
But that's a reciprocal relationship worth having until the end, right?
No,
that's the one you put your energy in. If I'm giving you energy, you got to give me back energy. I used to grab the whole fucking arena and pull everybody along with me. And I was in the ones that deserved my time didn't get my time because I was fucking around with these people who really didn't deserve it. Now my energy goes into those that are worthy and their energy goes into me because they tell me I'm worthy.
Yeah, no, I
so
hear
it
you.
sounds like it sounds like in this journey you've kind of realized what your real treasures are.
Yeah. I love my old lady. She stood by me through this whole fucking thing. And I was a wreck, man. I fought to even make her hate me because I didn't want her to ride through this with me. You know, I didn't want that. I didn't want her. My Soil King Jr., my youngest son, happened to be the one I was the least likely expected to come fucking show up. He showed up on every angle. How can I help you, Dad? He moved to Arizona with me, fucking doing things with me, saying whatever. He goes, I don't care. I'm here. Let's figure it out.
That's cool,
right?
man.
I'm like, fuck, man. My dogs, they travel everywhere I go.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Yeah.
There's a Michael Williams Michael Williams has been my best friend forever. He's always there, helped me build my cannabis companies, helped me did everything. And he silently quit a $80,000 job just to come back and work for me for pretty much free in order to build me, right?
Yeah.
Never saying anything. He just showed up one day. I'm all, what happened? Yeah, I quit my job. And finally, it's because you need me and we can do this together. You know, I can help you. We can rebuild it. That's really fucking reciprocal relationship, man.
Yeah.
Well, if I don't see you before Emerald Cup, I can't wait to give you a big hug, brother. It's been a great interview. And I can't wait to have you back.
I got a lot of shit to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I can't wait. We have a lot of shit to talk about.
I have a funny memory that I'll leave you with. I remember one year, I think it was a couple of years ago, I saw you outside of the Starbucks in Santa Rosa, like right, the one near Emerald Cup, and I just shouted at you like, "Soil King, I've grown some great weed with your soil," or whatever, and then I drove away or whatever.
Awesome.
But yeah, no, super appreciate your time today, Patrick, and really appreciate that story. I really resonated with me. Shout out to my wife. I can thank her. I've been through those sorts of moments as well. And when you have those moments and it really makes you appreciate those relationships. So yeah, I really appreciated that. story. But thanks everyone who's been watching today. This has been a really great interview. If you've been having a good time, make sure to look up Patrick and the Soil King. What's your website and everything like that?
You just say at the Soil King. Anything that's the Soil King, you can find me anywhere. Or seed to soul or rosin tech, just the Soil King. You'll find me.
Nice.
And I got a lot of shit to share of what's coming up in the future. Cool stuff. So definitely.
Yeah, we will be bringing Patrick back, and we'll be talking about compost, and we can just keep diving into a bunch of great topics here. But super appreciate your time. Thanks to our sponsors again, TikiMadMan over at tikiseeds.com, Grove Bags at grovebags.com, and use the code CannaBuzz to get 7% off your next order. And as always, thanks for joining us today, and growers love.
Growers love.
We're going to have to do a code on my website for you. Just hit me up and we'll do that as well. 15% off, CannaBuzz.
All right.
Hey, can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Hey, Grove Bags, did you hear that? Not 7%, but 15%. Right, Grove Bags? Okay, just saying something.
Yeah, I'll do 15%.
I'm just saying something.
All right. Growers love, guys.
Growers love.
Thanks for having me.